Shut up and sit down.
Hi guys, it's Dodge from Bigmeks Workshop and Paint Studio, and today we're going to be painting the Magmadroth Fyerslayer, which is a brilliant kit. I really enjoyed painting this one. Lots and lots of details on it, as you can see here. Unfortunately, we've had to split this into a two-part video because there's just so many layers of paint to do. And what I'm showing you here is, don't glue the rider on because we're going to put a bit of plastic card in there so we don't get our fingers all over the model while painting it. As you can see now we have a lizard on a stick basically that's been primed with Vallejo black primer. Then I'm going to use Vallejo German red primer, focusing primarily on the underneath, the spots that are going to be brighter, but it's going to get a general covering, so water it down a bit. Then we're going to use German yellow primer. Lots of primers on this first thing, on this first step, sorry, and focus that mainly anywhere you're going to want highlights, because what we're going to do is go over that with another red in a minute. And don't worry about, you know, the layers and the steps or getting any overspray on it, because there's going to be so many layers of colour that they all blend together anyway. As you can see, make sure you pick out all the spots you want to be brighter, including the back of the scales. Then we're using just red by Model Air. This is watered down like 60–70% possibly with thinner and 30% paint. We want this to be thin, so all those dark areas that we've put on, you can see those showing through, and that will add some nice transition to it. Now we're highlighting back up again with the German yellow primer for the underneath, because we're going to want that bit to be yellow. As you can see on some of the dragon already, we've got some nice transitions going on. And I've deliberately kept the feet darker, because it's sort of the GW box art one, but I'm doing it with my own colours. Now this is beige by Model Colour, which seems a little bit strong, but again, we're building up in layers with the airbrush, so it's not really a problem. Just needed something to bring out that yellow some more, so when we put another colour on it as a filter, it shows through. I've also done anything else that I want to be a really bright colour. Now we're going to thin down Orange Fire by Game Colour. We're going to hit all those parts and any of the previous red parts. You're going to go half and half across there. Where it's really red, you want to hit 50% over that and then go into the other colour as well. That way you'll blend those two transitions together. Yeah, that's the next colour for the highlights was Red Scarlet. Then we're going to go back down to the plain red by Model Air over all those bits, you know, because you get some overspray, so if you work on the bits that stick out with that brush, you then tone those down while the underneath should stay nice and bright. And the layering system for this will, you know, lighten up both of those. Now we're using flat yellow by Model Colour to start bringing up those yellows for the chest. If you just painted it all different reds, you're going to end up with just a big block of red even with the transitions. You need to break it up so there's something to look at with the eyes. Once that's done, we are going to use German Orange by Model Colour and dry brush that with a GW large dry brush. Take your time doing this. I've obviously sped it up. You want to get nearly all the scales. In hindsight, I would have probably took this down, like done this a bit more and dry brushed further down towards the bottom of the legs, because we're still going to add more colours to this, so it doesn't matter if you make those a bit too vibrant. Now to pick out all the spiky bits, I'm not sure what half of these are supposed to be. Some of them are obviously part of the dragon, the stuff on the shoulders I'm not sure about. But this is Rhinox Hide by GW. I could have just done it black, but I wanted to build up those warm colours, and Rhinox Hide is a warm brown. Next we're using Caribou Crimson by GW, and you need to pay close attention if you're following along with this. Push it into the deepest recess of the scale, dragging it up to the top of the scale with the brush, so it slowly darkens it as it goes in and up, leaving them lighter on the outside. We're also going to do the same thing with null oil. Now this is very time consuming. As you can see, there's a lot of scales on this. But now what you're going to end up with is light colours on the underneath, and anything that looks like big beefy scales, they're going to be nice and dark. Now the first colour for the mouth was... No, it's not VX88 at all, sorry. I appear to have missed a colour off my list there. I believe it's Avalon Sunset. This is VX88 for the vents, or whatever you would call them. You want to cover the entire thing and not just dry brush those if you can get them all the way in there, because we're going to add a wash in a minute. And there's a wash of Magmadroth Earthshade, then we re-highlight them again with VX88, then highlight them one more time with Zandri Dust, just in the centre of each of those parts. And after doing several layers of everything else, we're now going to go back to the spikes, and I'm using Eshen Grey by GW to highlight all the detail parts on these horns and spikes. You just have to give me a sec while I tell you what colour this one is. This is Deep Yellow by Model Colour, because you want the mouth to be hotter than everything else. And then we're going to go ahead and use Wild Rider Red, starting in the middle of the tongue and then feathering and blending it out with the rest of it. And that's a pretty random jump, but we're going to go back and forth for a minute. We're going to go to the sea. That was also primed black and then sprayed with Wolf Grey. Then the blue that I'm using is Allotic Blue by Games Workshop. Alitok Blue, sorry, by Games Workshop. Done in a Xenophil lighting sort of manner. Then Dragonoff Nightshade, starting from the top and pulling the majority of the wash down to the bottom. That way, you know, you get the most pigment down at the bottom, and that's where it'll dry. Then I didn't find it dark enough, so we're going to do the same thing with Null Oil, and that should be the final shade for that. So the underneath will be really dark, getting lighter to the top where the fire is. Now using Balthazar Gold to pick out anything metallic at this point, except for anything that you just want to do plain silver. Then we're going to wash all those parts we've done in Balthazar Gold with Requiem Flesh Shade. I'm using it straight from the pot here because we're going to re-highlight it up, so you don't have to worry about making it too dark. And once that's dried, we're going to use Sakorax Bronze by Games Workshop. It's not quite an edge highlight, you can go a bit heavier on that, you know, pulling out those details. And once we've done with that, we're going to go ahead and use Rootfang Steel for the final edge highlights in the hot spots. And as you can see, that's all really coming together now. There'll be more edge highlighting, but like I said, we jumped back and forth because I was just generally getting bored of painting the dragon and wanted to paint something different for a minute or two. Right, onto the fire, which was done with Orange Fire by Game Colour. I should have really painted the blue parts another colour before doing this, because it took a couple of layers, so take your time, do a couple of layers. There's a lot of bits to do in this, so you'll switch between a standard brush and a small brush. Now, I've never tried doing this before, but I have decided to go for what colour is that? Please Dryad Bark on all the embers. Anything that's raised in the embers, try and do with the Dryad Bark, leaving the orange showing from the underneath. As you can see. I've done that all the way up the top. Don't worry about the really pointy bits. Then I've used Carver Crimson, watered down with Lamiate Medium, to do the same sort of effect I was doing with the chair itself and pulling the shaded parts to the very bottom where the fire would be the coolest. We will cover all of the orange parts with that, and as you can see you get a nice fiery effect. Then for the smoke I used Rakar Flesh, and that took a couple of layers because the orange kept showing through. Sorry. I did a couple of layers of that. Just take your time with this because it's easy to miss with your brush and hit something you've already painted. Then we're going to use Light Grey by Model Air to, instead of highlighting it, we're going to go on the underneath of all the smoke parts, pulling the paint down and blending it into the coals and everything else around it. Then a quick switch over while that's drying, and I used Thunderhawk Blue by Games Workshop to edge highlight the entire chair, which again is very time consuming. Some of the parts are a very odd angle, so just take your time, control your brush, keep your hands steady because there's a possibility you will hit the metallic parts you've done. Now we're going to use German Grey by Model Colour. I wasn't quite sure how to do the smoke, so what I ended up doing was putting it on pretty thin at the top, and I just started stippling it to give a more cloudy smoke effect and a bit more sporadic at the top parts, so it wasn't all solid colour, and it came out pretty well. And we're switching straight back to the dragon while that dries, and doing, oh sorry, I lost my colours. Yeah, that's a Lamentus Yellow by Games Workshop, used as a glaze, and we're going to cover the entire tongue with that. Then we're going to use Carburn Crimson, watered down, and then we're going to highlight the rest of the mouth using beige again, watered down, just picking out the fine details. And give his eye a nice covering as well, because that'll be a focal point. And the teeth were done in pretty much the same fashion as the as all the horns and all the other spikes, so they were done with Rhinox hide. Take your time with this and leave some of the yellow showing underneath around the gums and around the mouth area. Then they were highlighted with Eshin Grey. As you can see, that colour transition on the tongue really paid off with all those layers. Then we're going to highlight just the tips and the most pronounced parts of all the horns and all the spikes. We're going to highlight those with Dawnstone. You want to water that down, but not too much that you lose control of it, and this step will take a long time. But once it's done, it will be worth it. Your dragon will look brilliant. The metallics on the arm, they were done the same fashion as the seat, and I will post a link in the description for the part 2 video on how to do the dwarf, because he took a long time on his own. If you like our videos, hit like. If you want to see more of our videos, hit subscribe, and you can check us out on Facebook, check our store out on eBay to buy anything like this, and I will see you in about 5 minutes in the next video. Alright guys, I'll catch you later.